I'm glad to see many of you decided to take the red pill and continue watching part 7. Dr. Burisch has covered many things in detail at this point in the interview, and one has to ask themselves, why would a man risk his own well-being to come forward with the information he's provided? Bob Lazar openly expressed fearing for his life when coming forward in 1989. What you're about to see is extremely rare security camera footage from October 12, 2005 of what's claimed to be the final orders Dan received from Majestic, being read out loud for evidence by Marcy McDowell. Dan's ex-wife, Deborah Burisch, is also present. If you find this video interesting, you're in good company. I suggest subscribing to the channel as we review some of history's most documented UFO phenomena. Thank you all for watching The Storyist.
Okay.
Do I get a copy of this?
Let me just read this to you, and then we'll figure out if you really want a copy, or if I should just send you a copy, or a hard copy, or what you need. I was instructed, the first part of this is, for me, to please read the following order word for word to Dr. Burisch and to receive his reply. I am instructed to have this reading preserved for history by a recording device such as audio or video. He prefers video. And that your exact words of reply shall be left for him at the appropriate email address as soon as possible. And he goes on to say, please understand that we hold that you and Deborah Burisch, shall be jointly held to care for Dr. Burisch's personal safety during the times ahead. And I am instructed to read this order to Dr. Burisch with me present. Top secret, magic eyes only. 2. The Honorable, the Most Honorable, Dr. Danny B. Katselas Burisch, Majestic, ID number H6196E. From the Most Honorable MJ number 1 for the Consistory of the Majestic 12, Washington, D.C. Within and for the Consistory of this majority assembled by order of the Majestic 12, in formal high session, Thursday, October 12th, 2005 AD. You are hereby instructed, ordered, and enjoined, to the best of your abilities and talents, to present the truth of the extraterrestrial reality as you have personally known it, on dates yet to be established, to the population of the world. You will conduct this disclosure with the application of your sacred honor, without regard for your personal security, and in an unwavering manner rely upon the truth and the countenance of Almighty God as your personal defense. Know now that you have the personal assurance of the Majestic 12 that none shall prevail against you, that your message shall be for the unity of humanity during the times of the Disciples' Cross. Such supremacy of word, but subordinate to God, is established by treaty with the future extraterrestrial intelligences. You are hereby held to all ethical and moral boundaries, as in keeping with the standards set forth for senior agents of the Majestic 12. May God be with you, O Son of the Majestic. We will stand unanimous and adjourned to your purpose. Your acceptance of this order is hereby requested forthwith.
I stand to their purpose and grant my assent to their wishes. I will carry out the orders as prescribed.
Thank you, Dr. Burisch. I will record your exact words of reply and transmit them.
I would like a copy of that if I may. Thank you.
Are we looking at something that was left behind by the Nordics?
Mhm.
So we're looking
As best as
forward.
I know.
We're looking forward to our future when we're
at a
looking at the
paradox.
ruin.
Yeah, we're looking at a paradox of their ruins, which they left on another planet
in our future,
in our future.
in our possible future.
Yep.
Okay, well, to come back to this
She's
future,
actually got the best command of this information of anyone in the public with whom I've spoken.
I know. Thank you. That's a very sweet thing to say.
It's honest.
Thank you. We've got I'm getting another question here from our small audience. And I must say that Bill Ryan is
Bill O'Brien,
Bill Ryan is also sitting with me and listening to this amazing information and asking some good questions.
When we're looking at Mars, are we therefore looking at the future?
Now the
I
question is
don't
this.
understand that. We're looking
The
at
question of the day is that what is going to happen? What is going to happen when the transition occurs and we either continue on one or, God forbid, number two happens? If number two happens, we're not going to be worried about Mars. We will have much more important things to worry about at that moment. Let's say, God willing, and I think we will, remain on timeline one. What's going to happen with our imagery of Mars? I think we'll probably remember taking images of these anomalous structures. And there have been some anomalous structures imaged on the moon as well. So I think we're probably going to remember that. At least I think so. If we don't, it's not going to matter now, is it?
So what you're saying is we're going to go back to the idea that there is no face on Mars.
Or there will be a face on Mars, and it will be presented to us at that moment as something different. Maybe the bricks will turn to rocks, and we will get there and find out that all of these beautiful ruins, including the scorpion. If you don't think it's a scorpion, tell me what it is. Okay, I'll show you the images from Star City on the top of this pyramid. If it's not a scorpion, tell me what it is. But perhaps we're going to get there and we're going to find out that all of this presumed architecture that we are seeing by virtue of the geometry that we're attempting to apply to these images is nothing more than rocks. That we've never been there. Because at that moment, because we had not transited over to timeline 2, that we have never visited there until we finally put, quote unquote, man on Mars.
But there's a profound
Okay.
paradox here because
There it is.
because what I hear you saying is that we're looking through telescopes where we're receiving light in present time with a few minutes difference.
A few
That's
minutes.
being reflected off objects on the surface of Mars, but we're actually looking at a possible future.
That's right.
I don't
There
understand.
are impacts into our timeline now, which have occurred. This is the information that I received not only from Kaela, but also from the material within Majestic. There are impacts into our reality now, our timeline now, by virtue of the amount of time travel which has occurred. Every time they have gone back in time, They have caused small paradoxes, which have built up as our reality that we now perceive. In other words, there is actual Newtonian superimposing. And that is a frightening thing to me.
So it's almost like putting money in the bank, though, every time they come from the P45s, in a sense. Their
Look at it
timeline
more
becomes,
as creating a larger heap of manure.
well, okay, but emphasis appreciated. However, nonetheless, it is like a deposit towards the actual occurrence happening. I mean,
I don't know.
they are agents of change, in a sense.
They are agents of change, as all human beings are agents of change. But I don't know whether there is a cause effect, whether there's a nexus between cause and effect having to do with their amount of time travel and the superimposition which is going on in our reality and the disaster itself. I think that the disaster itself, from everything that I've read and heard, is a direct consequence of the technological aspect of bringing too much energy toward us in a non-natural manner.
Okay, well, basically, you're saying there's two timelines. I mean, I'm sure you're aware of the work of physicists now that are saying, look, if you can have two timelines, you can have 2 million.
Well, don't we really have 3 or 4? I'm discussing 24,000s. I'm discussing 45,000s, 52,000s, and present day. How many timelines are that? Because these people moved ahead linearly in their timeline. Just because we want to call it timeline 2 doesn't mean that there are other effects or superimposings which are occurring on different realities during even their own timelines.
Exactly. I mean, there's a sense at which what you're talking about is not so much that the P45s, for example, timeline won't exist, as it will actually separate from our reality and become more like a parallel reality instead of an intersecting one.
From what I understand, the people who were just prior, which would be us, according to their history, to the people who were just after, exist as a straight vector of time. So in other words, God forbid the catastrophe occur, it will just appear as tomorrow the catastrophe occurs, et cetera, and we move forward and changes start occurring in the earth. There is a disaster, there's a loss of huge life, et cetera. We won't probably feel anything change aside from the fact that we'll all be running scared for our lives. Aside from that, I have no explanation.
Okay, you're saying if the catastrophe occurs,
Yeah.
but if it doesn't occur, there's still the element in which we have been visited by a timeline in which really does exist in a sense. And how do you unmake something which has been made? That's kind of, I mean, it's more of a philosophical question.
I don't know, and all I can do is defer to the creator on that issue, because all we do is perturb.
What has told you that this is true?
All of the above.
Okay.
It's all of the above, plus information directly from Majestic, I think.
Why is Majestic in a place to know that this actually happens or doesn't happen? In other words, you've got the looking glass technology that they use and you use, and you were instrumental in discovering. Were you in?
No. This is an original technology which was derived from ancient cylinder seals by people from our future who provided it to us, meaning the rogues, the P45s.
Okay, the people from our negative future.
That's right. We wouldn't have this lovely technology if it wasn't planted in our past for us to use now. The entirety of the technology must either be disabled or destroyed.
In other words, to unmake the technology.
Until at least after we pass through this time period. There is no way, from the deceit, the conceit, the avarice, and the greed that I have been around over the last 20 years amongst the good side of these two dirty coins. There is no way that they're not going to start this equipment back up again if it's usable after this. Of course they're going to. Come on. I mean, they've got this, it's like a magic box to try to see into the future. What they're going to do with our future with regard to that, I've got no clue. I have no power over it, and I have no clue.
Okay, so this looking glass technology comes from cylinder seals.
Originally, yes.
How?
Originally, it was a series of instructions for accessing the wormholes, which naturally pass in the hyperspace in which we find ourselves. And from there, they worked on the technology. They built the equipment from the instructions. After building the equipment from the instructions, they began to tweak it and find different things out about it. One of the things that they found is that they could actually use it as a peering portal, like a peering glass, if you will, to see different aspects of not only the future, but the past.
Are these Sumerian?
I would say that they slightly predate Sumerian time frame, but that some of the information which came down from cylinder seals that slightly predated the Sumerian time frame were then recopied in Sumerian seals as well. And those cylinder seals, oh yes, and those cylinder seals, to the best of my knowledge, have all been obtained.
From Iraq.
Some of them from Iraq, yes.
Some of them from Egypt?
Some of them from Egypt, some of them from other countries where they were being stored.
And
I really don't want to get my country into too many problems here.
and you've got, go ahead.
For a second, I want to reiterate, the Rogue P-45s jumped back, seeded this technology, because that's what they wanted to do, was to seed the land to help facilitate the catastrophe. Because by placing this technology available, they knew that it would be utilized. And as long as we as people, oh my God, they wanted to go back and see the technology, because they felt that as people, we would be unable to break ourselves away from using that technology.
How is it that this technology is being utilized now? And isn't, if you're talking about a wormhole, isn't it the same thing as a Stargate?
Essentially, yes. The technology is not being utilized now. Anywhere we find it, we take it.
Who's we? Because you have warring factions. You've got the Illuminati on one hand, you've got the Majestic on another.
We as the United States, as part of the UN, NATO. I don't really want to comment too much about NATO and who's controlling the NATO alliance at this point. But
isn't it a fact that the Illuminati
we're doing
would be stealing back this looking? I mean, if they want it to happen, their objective would be to steal these cylinders and get them on, so that they could use the looking glass technology.
They can't show up as an aggressor to steal anything back. So what they do is they vote against us.
How does that stop looking glass technology?
It plays out in the UN. Well, we had looking glass technology and portal, actual Stargate technology in Iraq as late as the start of 2003. And a lot of countries didn't want us to enter Iraq. We did them, didn't we?
Right. But how is it that, in other words, it sounds like...
just handed his two over. We just told him that we were going to make him rich beyond avarice. And he was a little smarter than Saddam, that's all. And so what he did is he handed them over and says, "Oh, please come into my country." He says, look at my equipment to make sure that I'm not making any weapons of mass destruction. Meanwhile, out the back door goes the two that Saddam actually had transferred over to him.
Cylinders.
Equipment, Stargate activating technology,
portal.
For them to experiment with. They were experimenting.
But if the looking glass technology is the same thing, is access as a wormhole. The technology accesses the wormhole.
Yes.
It also accesses the Stargates.
Well, that's essentially the same thing. I've been using the term Stargate.
Stargates
technology as
occur-
being a machine that accesses a wormhole by spreading out the energy, the strange matter, or whatever it is. I'm not a physicist. That spreads it out in a compatible way to either communicate through it or passage of information. And that includes also.
But it occurs naturally. Stargates occur naturally.
They do.
So how do you close those?
You don't, and we don't want to. We don't want to. The history reads that the natural passage of us through this energetic space is a good thing. But it's our use of technology which provokes the catastrophe.
So
It's our enhancement of this natural system, inappropriate enhancement, which provokes the catastrophe. And so, no, we don't want that to happen. I think that the energetics that we're passing through is part of what's happening to us naturally, is changing us in a positive way. It's part of the loving cosmos that we're part of. I think that's probably one of the factors, not all, but one of the factors.
This is the end of part 7. I want to invite you all to review this short excerpt of Dan answering questions regarding the looking glass device he's talked about when working at S4. This extraordinary artifact was said to be able to allow whoever possessed it the ability to see the future and the past. Consistency of this claim was proven years earlier when Bob Lazar discussed the same project. I look forward to seeing you at the release of Part 8.
There were 3 briefing rooms that were just opposite the facility. I saw into the briefing rooms, a couple of them, as I went down a couple of the times to just kind of peek, but I only saw the actual looking glass functioning once, and then I saw the experiment that the person passed away. So I was only really in there watching things twice. Not that different, except it was not set away. It was set into a floor device. This was something which was not propped up, and yeah, I saw that. And it didn't. There was nothing that moved, okay, per se. You know, it didn't get up and move, and there was no device up above it. This thing was mounted into the floor flat.
Okay.
Right. I saw at least 2 rings, and I saw a barrel in the middle, which was also set up to spin. And it was into that barrel that I understood that I heard that they were injecting it. Well, I heard him say argon one time. I don't know what the other gases were, but there were more gases that were put into it. And the item ran on electromagnetism. There was an electromagnetic field which was set up as a consequence of the function of the device. But what that field was, what the size was, I have no idea. The Gauss level was or whatever, I have no idea. We were just lucky to be able to watch them use it. And when it was functioning, it looked not that different from looking through a fisheye lens. I saw men walking on a street, but it was a contemporary thing. It looked like a hologram, if you will. Once it sped up to a certain point and then turned very bright, then there was a moment of dimming, and then I saw people. It looked like a typical urban type setting, but nobody ever told me what it was, and we were just allowed to watch and really not ask any questions. Yes, and in fact, what I've learned since then is that before they ostensibly have decommissioned the device, before so they could actually almost dial in, if you will, a date interim where they could see inside of a reasonable length of time, let's say a year or two, and sometimes events of shorter consequence.